Alright guys, welcome to Flav Orellana's MMA show. I'm your host Flav Orellana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. On the bottom right corner, please hit the like and subscribe button, hit the Four Corner Sports logo to like and subscribe to this page. Alright guys, so we ended up having UFC Fight Island 6. Please excuse my hair, I know it's a little bit sloppy, but we ended up having Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie finally. After, what is it, like 2 years or something like that, we finally have Zombie versus Ortega. Ortega's first match since the Max Holloway fight. We also had a women's flyweight match between Caitlin Chukagian, and you ended up having Jessica Andrade. I'll talk about that. Plus, I'll give you a breakdown on what's most likely going to happen, my predictions for this UFC pay-per-view card headlined by Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje and Khamzat Chimaev. I'll get to that later in the video. But without further ado, like I said, please like and subscribe to this video. I have plenty of videos. This is the 10th episode of Flav Orellana's MMA podcast. Flav Orellana's show. So hit that like and subscribe button and please share. Be a really big help. Alright guys, so without further ado, so we ended up having UFC Fight Island 6, headlined by Ortega versus Zombie. And I gotta say, outside of the obvious between Brian Ortega's hair, which I was very debating why he cut his hair. He says that he was suffering and he knew that there were others suffering, so he wanted to cut his hair for quite some time and donate it. I think that's a great story. Keyword story. I don't really believe it. If he was really going to do it, then why didn't he cut his hair in the beginning of the camp? That's neither here or there. I mean, now he's bald. But this is Brian Ortega 2.0. We didn't anticipate for him to have the performance he had on Saturday. And wow, I mean, I'm very, very shocked to see what happened, because if anybody remember his last fight between Max Holloway, I mean, this guy looked exhausted. This guy was battered up, bloody, beaten down, couldn't defend himself. He was a stationary target, and Max Holloway was picking him apart. And a lot of people predicted that Korean Zombie was going to do the same exact action that Max Holloway ended up doing 2 years ago. Wrong. Alright, I predicted for Ortega to win, but I didn't predict Ortega to win in that type of manner that he ended up showing this past Saturday, I'm sorry. Brian Ortega, he is the 2.0 version. I mean, whatever he did, I know he changed his fight camp, he changed his entourage around him, was more focused, wanted to have less distractions. This is a very dangerous, I was going to say Michael Chandler for a second. This is a very dangerous Brian Ortega. This Brian Ortega is utilizing his jab, showing that he has good footwork. Obviously, the jiu-jitsu is right there. And he was utilizing everything with the exception of his ground game. It wasn't needed in this fight. And I think Korean Zombie was really anticipating for this fight to go down to the ground. And Brian Ortega showed us, like, look, I have a secret weapon, and it's my boxing. It's my jab. I've been working on it. And he was really touching up Korean Zombie. It was punch, punch, move out the way. Punch, move out the way. Calf kick, move out the way. And honestly, I gotta say, that was a really beautiful performance he ended up doing. Touching up the lead leg of Korean Zombie. Round one, it was all Brian Ortega. Setting up with the punch. I think it just caught Korean Zombie by surprise, as much as we all were surprised. Knocking him down. Touching up the lead leg, throwing the jab, doing everything that you're supposed to do when you're being taught the fundamentals of boxing and kickboxing, And then round two, Korean Zombie was getting a little bit of a understanding on how Brian Ortega was going to carry the fight, But I don't know. We saw like a little bit of a mimic of John Jones with in that second round. Now it didn't call. Now Brian Ortega ended up doing a spinning elbow. I don't know why they call it a spinning elbow. It really caught right over here, right on the back of his arm. But it caught Korean Zombie right flush right on the mouth. It knocked him down, and Brian Ortega tried to capitalize, but he wasn't like rushing where he was gonna punch himself to the point like how Randy Couture did against Brock Lesnar. No. I was very surprised to see that, you know, he was utilizing every little thing that he can, using his elbows, his jab, you know, throwing an overhand, you know, anything to confuse the Korean Zombie, and it was all working. I felt like the turning point of that fight was that spinning elbow shot. It just missed. It was maybe about like 2 inches off the right, where it would have caught Korean Zombie flush, you know, with Ortega's elbow hitting the center of Zombie's mouth. If that would have happened, it would have been lights out. It would have been done in 2 rounds. But that wasn't the case. I felt like Korean Zombie he ended up looking out of it at that point. I felt that Zombie wasn't himself, you know, for the remaining part of the fight. So round 3, it was more of the same. It was more hitting, you know, Ortega hitting the lead leg. Zombie didn't know what to do. I mean, he was getting outstriked. He was getting out hit. He was getting outmatched at every single point of the round 3. And Ortega was throwing in the takedown. You know, he was going for the takedown, you know, attempt. And Zombie had to respect that, because if it was going to go down to the floor, obviously we all favor Brian Ortega because of his jiu-jitsu. If it's standing up, we were going to favor Korean Zombie, but not on Saturday. Not on Saturday. Ortega ended up doing whatever he wanted, and he ended up dominating, you know, all those 5 rounds. And after that match was over, we were thinking at one point, if Ortega wins, what was going to be the end result? Is he going to get a title shot? With the performance he ended up putting out there this past Saturday, of course, he definitely deserves a title shot. You know, I know Alexander Volkanovski's happy because he wants a new direction in the featherweight division to go on. Doesn't want to keep on fighting Max Holloway. I know a lot of people would say that he's the most disrespected champion. I get, you know, why they're saying that, but I'm very excited to see how this is going to pan out. I believe in a match between Ortega and Volkanovski, it will favor Volkanovski a little bit, but this is going to create a lot of game planning to do now with this version of Brian Ortega. This guy will take you down. This guy will jab you to death. This guy is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's the jack of all trades at this point. And for somebody like an Alexander Volkanovski, who is, you know, pretty heavy-handed, who can wrestle, I don't know how you would want to have to game plan for a Brian Ortega with the amount of skills that Volkanovski have. When he ended up fighting Max Holloway, it was very, very easy for Volkanovski to just trade shots with Max. Now you're fighting somebody similar. I mean, somebody totally different from Max Holloway. This is the complete opposite. He could go to the ground, but he could also box you. So I don't know. I'm very, very interested to see how that would happen. I predict that fight might end up happening in February, in my opinion, just because Volkanovski hasn't fought since International Fight Week. Brian Ortega didn't get really hurt. He wasn't in danger at any point of the fight, and he probably got a couple of scratch marks, but from October to February, I think should be enough time for him to recover and to go through a training camp. So I'm predicting February. At the latest, I see maybe March, if not April. But that's pushing it right there. For the co-main event, we ended up having... Oh, I'm sorry. Before I move on to the co-main event, who should Korean Zombie end up fighting next? Well, that's a problem, because I had predicted that Max Holloway is going to fight Calvin Kattar. I'm predicting it's going to happen in 2021. Most likely January 23rd on the Conor McGregor-Dustin Poirier fight. I feel like it's most likely going to happen there. Max is not a champion. I can see Dana White throwing Max in there for the co-main event between Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway. Should draw a lot of fans for that event, especially if you have Max Holloway there, who's a former champion, who a lot of MMA fans know who he is, casual or hardcore. I think should be an exciting matchup. Plus, stylistically, those two fighting styles, correlate with one another. But for the Korean Zombie, I don't know who he would fight. Would he have to fight the winner between Zabit, I can't pronounce his last name, so don't even ask me, versus Yair Rodriguez, if that fight was to ever happen? Or would Korean Zombie, be put on the shelf for a decent, amount of time and fight somebody like a Josh Emmett, who is trying to recover from an ACL injury, and realistically he might be able to be good to go by the summer of 2021. So right now it's very, very difficult to see who he's going to fight. Can't see Dana having him fight somebody inside the top 15, definitely somebody in the top 10. But yeah, I mean, Korean Zombie put himself in this pickle now because, by him losing, now it just makes it harder for these matchmakers to set him up with an opponent. But now, finally getting back to the co-main event, like I said, it was a co-main event between Caitlin Chukagian, ranked number 1 of all flyweights in the women's division, versus Jessica Andrade, who is moving up from 115 to 125. Now, I had predicted that Caitlin Chukagian was going to end up winning, but I said that Caitlin Chukagian was going to win because she was going to fight at distance. I mean, do you see her legs? I said her legs are longer than the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, her legs are ridiculously long. So she was going to be able to fight longer at long distance, separate, be able to throw side kicks, all right, set up with the jab. But the problem with Caitlin Chukagian is that she doesn't have really big punching power. And if she's on the floor against Jessica Andrade, it's not going to go well. Well, I was wrong because Jessica Andrade ended up beating the brakes off of Caitlin Chukagian. I mean, I was like, whoa. I was like, where did that come from? But look, she ended up having a fight with Rose Namajunas, and I thought that for her to take a fight this early, it was just like, all right, maybe she didn't get hurt that bad. But she made quick work of it. She literally went in, went out, got her paycheck, left Fight Island, sayonara. That's what Jessica Andrade ended up doing for UFC Fight Island 6. Wow. Yeah, now I'm very, very excited just because, like, look, Jessica Andrade, from jump, she ended up, putting on pressure on Caitlin Chukagian, pushing her against the wall, and just attacking the body, and she was able to do what she needed to do. Sure, it went to the floor, not the best situation for Caitlin Chukagian, because obviously Andrade's background in BJJ. But yeah, at one point they were clinched against the fence, and Andrade, she ended up throwing a right uppercut into the body, and for Caitlin Chukagian to grab onto her side, point to her side, and I don't know why she did that. She gave it away, and then for her to run away, she must have been in such excruciating pain. So she runs away onto the opposite side of the cage. Andrade sees that, sprints, tries to throw like a flying knee, like as if she's Jorge Masvidal, misses, and then she just starts to throw a little combination, and then bam, right into the body again, attacks the body, which is very, very smart because a lot of people, they'll be headhunting at that point when you see that their opponent has been hurt, wounded, and they're in the position that they're going to end up getting knocked out. But she went right for the same spot that she ended up hitting her, and it was lights out. Ends up falling onto the ground, ends up giving herself up, and that was the fight. I'm very, very impressed with Jessica Andrade. She ends up moving now due to the UFC standing. She is now ranked number 1 of all flyweights. So now that brings us to the topic. Come November, we're gonna have Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia for the flyweight title. Now, a lot of us are predicting that Valentina Shevchenko is going to end up winning it. Now, if she was to lose it against Jennifer Maia, I imagine that Dana White, Mick Maynard, and Sean Shelby are going to be like, we're going to run that back. But if Valentina Shevchenko was to win, and I'm predicting that she will win, right? the UFC definitely has to put Andrade versus Valentina Shevchenko. I know Michael Chiesa after the UFC Fight Island show, he ended up for the post fight saying that what Jessica Andrade ended up doing to Caitlin Chukagian was just only a matter of minutes compared to what Valentina had to do. It took her a couple rounds to do that to Caitlin Chukagian. I get that, and I think it's just because of the fact that Andrade has more of a heavier hand. But look, Valentina has been one of the best flyweights to ever touch that division. In my opinion, I think she's the best female fighter in the world. I know others are going to say Amanda Nunes. I think, honestly, what the UFC should do, if Valentina wins, you got to have Andrade versus Shevchenko. If Shevchenko beats Jessica Andrade, Shevchenko should fight Wei Li Chang after her fight with Rose Namajunas. That's if she wins. And that's gonna be a mega fight right there, champion versus champion. You can make a catch weight at 120. I know the UFC doesn't like to do stuff like that, but look, this is something that I'm predicting. Later down the line, I think that what they should end up doing, have that. And for whatever reason, if Shevchenko is able to beat Wei Li Chang, the UFC should definitely run it back for a third time. Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes. And I ended up rewatching that video at least a good 2 or 3 times this past week between Shevchenko and Nunes. Twice for Shevchenko and Nunes Part 2. I still see that Shevchenko should have won that fight, but this is what I'm breaking down for you. Andrade has to fight Shevchenko next. I don't want to see Andrade fight anybody else. I know Cynthia Calvillo ended up pulling out because of COVID-19 reasons for this upcoming pay-per-view. So Lauren Lucky Murphy is going to be fighting a new opponent, somebody that's not ranked. I don't want to see Andrade fighting Lauren Murphy, or her fighting the winner between Murphy and Cynthia Calvillo. I just at this point want to see Jessica Andrade fighting Valentina Shevchenko. I think that should be an amazing fight. I think that should be a great fight, and that's something to really, really look forward to. So yeah, so that's what happened for this UFC Fight Island 6. Look, we have, our October pay-per-view headline between Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. Look, honestly, in my opinion, I think this has to be one of the most anticipated matches in quite some time. I know Conor versus Khabib, from a media standpoint, is one of the biggest spectacles ever. I mean, I just rewatched that fight earlier today, and I still can't get over that fight. But Justin Gaethje, if we weren't in this pandemic, there'll be a sellout crowd with people yelling his name after what he ended up doing to Tony Ferguson, because he ended up making a name for himself. And he also announced to the world that he is half Mexican. So the Latino community is going to back him up. I mean, I didn't even know that. I mean, I see his last name, I'm thinking this guy's just straight up German. No, this guy is half German, half Mexican. So that makes a huge difference. The Latino community is going to definitely root for Justin Gaethje. But getting back to Justin Gaethje, look, stylistically, I mean, I don't know how this is going to pan out, because Justin Gaethje was an All-American wrestler, great wrestler in college. But he doesn't use his wrestling at all at any point. His wrestling defense, his takedown defense is outstanding. It's like second to none in that division. And this guy's boxing, his striking is like, he might as well have like bricks on his hands, because he's clubbing away at people. And the amount of punches that he landed on Justin Gaethje, the amount of power shots that he landed on, not Justin Gaethje, on Tony Ferguson, would have knocked out the normal human out. I feel like if he repeats a similar fighting style, a similar game plan to Khabib Nurmagomedov, I don't know how that's going to work out. Khabib is going to time those kicks. He's going to try to shoot for every single takedown as much as possible. up until the point that he sees that Justin is gassing out, and then he's going to smash him. But for Justin to win this fight, he's going to have to fight at range. He's going to have to force Khabib to get frustrated. He's going to have to stuff all his takedowns as much as possible. Sure, he's going to be his back at, in a couple of times throughout the fight. He's not going to stop. He's not going to be able to stop Khabib's takedowns all day long. But he's definitely going to have to show that his jab, he's going to have to, set up, different boxing combinations. He's going to have to force Khabib to stand more in front of him as opposed to him trying to shoot from the side. I'm very, very intrigued in this matchup. As long as Gaethje doesn't have his back against the wall, and I know everybody says that, he has a chance. But I want to see what happens. Is Justin Gaethje going to try to take down Khabib? If he takes down Khabib, it's going to be in the back of his head, and he's going to have to respect it. Similar result to what happened to Korean Zombie. When Brian Ortega ended up trying to go for the takedown, Korean Zombie immediately had it implemented in his head that, hey, this guy has wrestling, he will take me down, and he will hurt me. If Justin Gaethje does that to Khabib Nurmagomedov, it's going to change the whole game plan for Khabib, and he's going to have to think twice about what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. If these two were to fight standing up, obviously I would favor Gaethje. Wrestling background, I don't know. It might be dead even. When it comes to grappling and ground and pound, I'm definitely gonna favor Khabib Nurmagomedov. If I have to pick right now, my early predictions would definitely have to be Khabib Nurmagomedov winning by decision. I don't see how Khabib's gonna be able to absorb too much punishment with him grappling onto Justin. But crazier things have happened, and we'll see what happens for this Saturday. I'm not gonna cover the rest of the card as right now. I'll probably end up doing that on Friday. But yeah, I'm only gonna cover the main event at this point. Moving on forward towards the last thing I was gonna cover, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, yes, this guy, Khamzat Mania, this guy is going to be asking for fights after fight after fight, in which he should. I really do respect this guy. I like him as a fighter. This guy, all he wants to do is fight every weekend, every hour. He'll fight you for free. It doesn't matter. I'm very, very intrigued on who's going to be his next opponent. Now, there is Neil Magny, who's like, I don't care, I don't give a bleep. I want to just fight this guy. Who cares about rankings? Rankings are stupid. I agree with him to a certain extent, because I'm thinking, you know what? What's it called? Neil Magny is right. What is the whole purpose of rankings? It's just to have a conversation. It's just for these media writers to say, hey, these are the people that should be, listed in order. Just because you rank number one doesn't mean that you're automatically the number one contender for that belt. So, if this fight was to take place, it's most likely going to end up taking place, at the 170-pound mark at welterweight. Look, Neil Magny is not the type of guy that likes to do press conferences and stuff like that. And he definitely needs a big name. If he's able to have a fight with Khamzat Chimaev and able to beat him, that is a big enough name right there for him to have clout. Look, this guy has been around in the game for quite some time. This guy, it has already tied George St. Pierre's record for most wins in the welterweight division. I'm just thinking to myself, is Neil Magny and Khamzat Chimaev going to end up happening? Because Dana White keeps on saying December 19th, this guy's going to have a fight. Against who? I'm hearing Chris Weidman. I'm hearing Neil Magny. I know some people have thrown out Leon Edwards. I don't see that happening at all. So I'm like, who is Khamzat Chimaev going to fight, December 19th? If he ends up fighting Neil Magny, rest assured this fight's going to be on the ground 100% of the time. They're not going to trade punches whatsoever. But if it's Chris Weidman's going to try to step forward and pressure. I don't know. I don't know which direction this is gonna go. All I just know is this. We as fans, we definitely want to see Hamza Chimaev, fight as many times as possible. Look what he did to Gerald Meerschaert. Look what he did to Reese McKee. Look what he did to John Phillips. We all want to see Hamza Chimaev keep on fighting. It's going to only build his brand. It's going to build, it's going to attract more fans. So it's going to attract, people that are like, oh, I've seen this guy all over Twitter and Instagram and social media. I definitely want to tune in. Come on, put Hamza Chimaev. I mean, you could have put Hamza Chimaev on this November card coming up. I mean, and it would have been a great, spectacle. But I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be Neil Magny versus Hamza Chimaev. If that's the case, I definitely favor Hamza. And then if Hamza was to beat Neil Magny, then you throw this guy like a top 5 opponent. Somebody like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, somebody like a Leon Edwards. And Hamza Chimaev will be closer and closer towards his goal, which is to become champion. But yeah, so I don't know who's going to end up fighting Hamza Chimaev. Hamza Chimaev had a video recorded of him, and he ended up saying that he welcomes Neil Magny, he respects him, but he's going to be walking to his execution. When I heard that, I'm like, wow, this guy doesn't mean that in the wrong way possible, but it just sounds so funny, and I just feel like Neil Magny might be walking into his own execution fighting Hamza Chimaev. I think this guy looks like he's unbeatable at this point, and if this guy was naturally just a kickboxer and we ended up doing to a Gerald Meerschaert, look out guys in 170, look out guys in 185. Should be very interesting when you have somebody of that type of caliber of a Hamza Chimaev. Alright guys, well that covers everything for this MMA show. I'm your host Flav Orellana, and thank you for watching Flav Orellana's MMA show. This was our 10th episode. I'm probably throwing an episode on Friday to give you the full predictions for this UFC pay-per-view card, headlined by Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. Thank you again for watching the show. Please like and subscribe. Please share this with everybody that you know, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, peace, guys. Have a good one.